Greetings, we are in Junior English, and our objective now for a few minutes is to talk with some poignancy about the text, Fitzgerald's text, Winter Dreams. Let's just make a couple of quick observations for your notes to set you up to the reading study of Fitzgerald's Great Gatsby that will be coming here for you in a few days. Fitzgerald is a really influential American author, but he is considered such because of his critique of the jazz era, let's say it that way. His critique of the jazz era, that is to say the 1920s, when America was a dynamic, thriving, growing economic power. The transition for a lot of Midwesterners to the East Coast, especially in the process of gaining that wealth, that opulence, and the ways in which the American dream, as Horatio Alger and others will phrase the term, becomes then central. Let's begin by asking for a definition, a working definition of the American dream. And then we'll talk about Winter Dreams now, not Great Gatsby. We'll reserve our comments until later on that one. And let's talk about how this text is a criticism of a certain view of life, a certain expectation of life. Let's start with the definition of winter dreams. What do we mean when we use that term? I'm sorry, American dream. What do we mean when we use that term? The American dream. Like, for example, how is the American dream somehow substantially different from the Japanese dream, or the Chinese dream, or the British dream, or the French dream, or the Italian dream? Like, what is it that makes the American dream so special? American. Like, but why? I'm sorry?
Like the goal life.
So, British people don't have goals? Russian people don't have goals? Italian people don't have goals? No, we have a sense. No, they have goals too.
Starting over, like, because how we succeeded and how they could come from Europe and then become rich in America.
The notion, let's start here. The idea that, it's kind of a two-part gig. The idea that you can begin with nothing and end with not just something, but a lot of something. Okay? But when we say something here, what do we mean? Do we mean like peace? Do we mean like joy? What is the something that you end with?
Success.
Success is defined by what, though? It's got to come down to the way you measure success, more particularly currency. In other words, you are what you own. You are what you own. You are what you possess. And those possessions can come to you even though you have nothing in this place. That's what makes the American dream the American dream. Americans collectively began to adopt the idea that America is a particularly special place, unlike any other place in the world. And this idea will begin in the late 1800s. The idea, America's a special place. It's far different from any other country. Now, of course, you've been taught in your patriotic lectures on patriotism that you're supposed to think of your country this way. You know, America is a great place. I love America, that kind of thing. But this is something different from that. Americans fundamentally assert that there is no other place in the world where you have the opportunity for this kind of success. That's the key word, opportunity. It's not that just because you're American, you're going to rise from poverty to greatness. Right? It's that you have the opportunity to do so. Now, who are the classic examples of this? It's not like this myth is constructed without some serious examples of how this happened. Who's probably the greatest political example of this? Starting from absolutely nothing and becoming
Lincoln.
The greatest president. Right. Our president number 16. Lincoln is living proof, and he's constantly used. He's taught to children, look, here it is. And there's an interesting argument that says that's probably not true of any other country in the history of the past history of the world, where somebody could begin with absolutely nothing and ends up the most powerful man in the world, certainly in the country. There's other examples. We won't go into them because of lack of time. But you could make a real quick list of examples that are used to say you can do this if you want it bad enough. And there's the other side. You got to be willing to work really hard for it. So you work hard for it and then you get it. Get what? Success. How do you get success? How do you get power? Right? This is this whole thing of the money. Everything is about the money. Right? So you get it. You've got it. It's all about status. But unlike other cultures where you're kind of born into a certain kind of status, you're born into opulence or whatever, this notion says you can be born into nothing. You can be a complete and total nobody. And then through hard work, the opportunities available to you economically in this country allow for you to rise to greatness. And you can then become somebody of great means, great power. What's never said but implied is, of course, once you gain the success, you will be what? You will be what? If you can gain the success, you'll be happy, right? That's never said, but it's certainly implied. Fitzgerald takes to task that part of the American dream. He does not deny that America is a country where you can begin with nothing and have something. He does not deny that. And in fact, most of his work seems to almost kind of like celebrate that reality. You really can do that. When we meet Gatsby, when we meet Jay Gatsby, we'll meet a cat who begins with absolutely nothing and ends with a lot of stuff. Tremendous power, tremendous success.
Dead in a pool.
Even more to the point, the question will be, so what? The question will be the implication, big deal. Because there's the second part. If only you can accomplish the dream, you will be pleased, you will be happy, you will be at peace. And Fitzgerald has a tendency to say about that part of the dream, not so fast, not so fast. So let's ask a couple of questions about the text itself, Winter Dreams. How does this text play this game? Is this a story about a guy or a girl? Primarily, what would you say? Does the story seem to factor more about Dexter or more about Judy? Is this a story about him or is it really a story about her?
Yeah, but that's his obsession that he's talking about. So
I'm going to say her.
Because, like, even in the beginning, she's in there, and she even...
She's all the way through the story. Even when she's not there, she's there.
And he could be like the narrator of the story.
And he, of course, once he sees her, what does she become in his mind? She represents what? She does represent that dream, doesn't she? If only I can get her. Of course, to get her, what has he got to get? All the other stuff that goes along with it, right? It's kind of like he has to buy her in some way. He has to earn her, earn the right to be with her, right? Who is she? Who is this girl? What do you make of her? What's wrong with her? What would you say is wrong with her?
She doesn't know.
She doesn't know what?
What she's doing.
Much.
She doesn't know what she's doing.
she knows what she's doing.
She knows that she's playing with guys' hearts all the time. Oh! Mr. Mignot says she knows. She knows.
She doesn't know what how to live without all that stuff.
Is she a bad person?
No.
Hodges, you think she's a bad
It
person?
really depends.
Do you see her as a bad person?
Parents obviously think she's smart.
Intentions.
She's not smart. You mean intelligent. Do you mean by smart she's not intelligent?
She's smart because she knows how to balance it all out.
But
But she does smart, but...
She knows how to get the guys.
Yeah.
Does that make her smart?
But she doesn't
She knows how to use her wares to get her guys.
She's not smart.
But she's one.
What do you think? Costales, what do you think? She's smart? Judy Jones, is she smart? Would you call her smart? Or would you call her shrewd?
Ignorant.
Ignorant meaning
She
she...
doesn't know any different.
You mean she lacks wisdom?
She was never taught.
She lacks common sense?
She lacks experience.
What kind of experience? Because it seems like she's had all the experiences.
Well, no, that's not what I meant.
You don't mean even sexual experiences, but what
No.
experiences do you mean?
Like, she probably went into this the exact same way.
This
she's,
what?
Like, this entire relationship
Got it.
game.
Yeah.
You know, she probably went into this with the intention of talking to this guy and going over here to talk to this guy.
Right.
And so she's never actually been in, like, a stable relationship.
She's never had love.
No, she doesn't know any different.
She never had love. Would you agree? Judy Jones, is that what she wants?
No.
Does Judy Jones want love?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe in the end.
How can you infer that?
Because she wants them to love
but I'm
her.
not happy.
She wants the guys to love her But is that the same thing as wanting love?
No.
How is it different?
She just wants to be wanted.
She wants to be wanted. She wants to be chased after. But once she is chased after, what is her proclivities?
And she's like, alright.
She bolts, yeah, she bolts.
Is she like the economy, or?
In some ways, she does become the symbol of that notion of industry, the economic dream. If only I could chase just a little bit more of the dollars. Supply and demand. We think, of course, in Marxist terms as well here, don't we? But in the end, who wins? Now, this is an interesting question. We'll finish with this one. In the end of the story, who wins?
Nobody.
Does he win?
Nobody wins.
Does she win?
The guy who marries Judy.
No.
The guy who gets Judy wins?
Well,
Well,
he's drunk.
he's just drunk.
He's just stoned all the time. She got what she got in the end what she wanted.
No.
What could she have done differently? Earlier in her life, what could she have done differently? Do you see this as she made a conscious choice to be this kind of person? Did she wake up some morning and say, I'm going to be this kind of girl? Well then, was it an effect of the culture at large?
Fitzgerald seems to lack like a good supply of actually level-headed women in his stories. Probably because of his wife, but I don't know.
Fitzgerald does have certain kind of caricatures of women. Now, Fitzgerald will point out often that his stories are really not about the women, but rather the relationship between women and men. More particularly, the way men go for these kinds of women. Why is that? These women have power only because men give them that kind of power. They're beautiful. They're the Kardashians.
Gross.
Right, but no, I'm not saying this in a negative way. I'm saying the women that Fitzgerald constructs still are with us. They don't really do anything. They're more what they are. They have power because of what they are. Maybe we would say who they are. Right? But again, begging the question, but are they happy? Well, they're drop dead, gorgeous, and rich. Isn't that enough? Judy Jones about that says
he also
what?
was stupid, so.
A certain kind of question of intelligence clearly comes into play. But can you really call somebody stupid who has found a way to manipulate tens of millions of people?
Yeah.
Can you call that person stupid? Or are you more inclined to call...
I can technically call whoever I want.
You
stupid.
can, but can you validate so easily?
Yes.
It seems like Judy Jones has the intelligence to know how to keep playing this game.
But not enough
Do you
to
see her
know
as
when to
a
stop.
do you see her as a survivor?
She's never had to survive.
You see her as just a pampered girl.
She was obviously,
She's given everything she wants all
If
of
she
her.
has a beginning, she was obviously born into.
She's been born into it. That's
Yeah, I
right.
mean-
She's been born into it. Do you see her spoiled?
Did you
Is
see
she
how
spoiled?
she treated her nurse?
Right. She treats everyone this way. How does she treat them?
With disdain.
They're at her
Disdain.
disposal.
They're at her disposal. She uses them. Question: is Dexter the stupid one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why doesn't he just see this for what it
Everybody's
is?
stupid.
He tries. He
Everybody's
does see
stupid.
it for what it is. He's
Thank you, Ms.
consciously
Costalis.
aware.
You're right. He is consciously aware. He knows what's going on, and it still
But
works.
he's stupid for thinking you get
When she does the little pouting thing, it works.
They're both stupid.
He says a really
What
good
does he say?
actor.
He says that he's too deep into it or something?
Like
He or she is a good actor.
Like it's like a
She's a really good actor.
Yeah.
She can
Like,
play with you.
Yeah, she makes people think that,
Read too deep.
oh, you're so special to me,
Yeah,
know,
Right,
all
right,
this
right.
stuff.
She's
And
really
yeah.
good at playing that vulnerable, weak girl.
Yeah, but she's not.
She's not. So does that make her smart?
No, no.
She has power over men through her sexuality, through her charm, through her savvy. Right up until the very end. Yeah, she's okay. Okay? She was drop dead gorgeous. Yeah, not anymore. Seems to be kind
Maybe
of a
this
moral
guy's just-
tale in some ways, doesn't it? Fitzgerald kind of playing a little moral tale on us here, right? You may have what you can have now, but sooner or later it kind of starts to go away. Which begs a really intriguing question. A few years ago when I gave this lecture, it was Paris Hilton that I could talk about, not the Kardashians. Nobody talks about Paris Hilton much anymore. Isn't that interesting? It's not that she doesn't exist. It's not that she doesn't have power. It's that she's somehow been, she's been replaced. She's been kind of replaced. And of course, there will be another one in the future, right? Who will kind of replace the Kardashian clan, right? And then, right? And there will come a point when all of these people become completely no names, where people go, "Oh yeah, you're that chick from," right? Which begs a really intriguing question: what's that got to feel like? When you finally have completely fallen out of the cultural eye.
Ask Mitt Romney.
Well, but we're talking about,
Sorry, I just had to.
right. We could talk about politicians in this way, but we're talking about something that happens so that everyone in the collective culture goes, who's Mitt Romney? It's at that point. What's that got to be like for Judy Jones?
If you ask anybody who's Rutherford B. Hayes nowadays,
You're right. It's like gone. The history is gone. The life is gone. The excitement is gone. The winter has come. Why winter dreams? Why not spring dreams?
Spring is like when flowers bloom. Winter is when everything dies.
Winter is the time when dreams begin, but it's also, of course, the time, it seems, when lots of dreams come to their penultimate conclusion, right? So, finally, happy story or sad story?
Sad.
What makes it sad?
Because it's kind of a love story that just didn't pan out.
It is a love story. In fact, Fitzgerald would say
But
it's a love story about love. But love of what? All the wrong things. You got it. All the wrong things. To that degree, it can be read as a moral tale. Fitzgerald is really often giving us these kind of moral tales where he says, be aware, you may want it. It's like that famous line, he got what he wanted, but he lost what he had. In some ways, Judy Jones gets what she wanted, but she lost what she had. As a therapist, was there ever a moment in the story when you could have stepped in and helped these two? Could you have saved, quote-unquote, Judy Jones as a therapist?
Well, all these characters seem to be like smart enough to be unhappy, but not smart enough to figure out a way out.
Mr. McAfee raises a really intriguing question. I wish we had more time to ask it and answer it. Do you think people choose to be happy or choose to be sad? Is it a conscious decision, or is it rather a byproduct of life experiences?
Can be both.
If you're rich,
Mind
you
the
kind
choices you
of
make.
may like reinvent yourself, become.
If you're
like
rich, Mr. McAfee says, a lot of it has to do with economics.
Will you create
Are you saying people who have economic capacities have a greater tendency to
People who
choose
have
happiness or not to
limitless
choose happiness?
resources have a greater capability.
Could Judy have chosen to be happy?
Yeah.
Or does
Well,
she, in fact...
could have chosen to go a different way,
Or here's a question.
she felt like
When you make the fundamental decisions of your life, you're roughly in that window between 20 and 40. Those 20 years matter, right, in terms of the American dream. So you make all of these little decisions in the early part of that. How will you know what makes you happy? A year from now, you and I will be having this conversation about possible majors in college, because you'll be about 200 days away from graduating and starting university training. And one of the obvious questions is, what are you going to major in? And that obviously leads to the question of, well, what will make you happy professionally, in your career? And how do you know, you know what I'm asking? How do you know before you get there? Could Judy Jones have known before she got there that her life would end kind of really crappy with this alcoholic idiot?
No.
So is it a dice roll? All of our existence is kind of like a dice roll. We do these things and we just kind of hope it works out to be happy?
developmentally.
Or is there a way to predict? Is there a way to kind of say, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, and then I know I will be happy in 30 years? Or is it just kind of a dice roll?
Depends on the person.
Or is
Very few
happiness
people can
about what you do? Or is happiness about who you are?
She seemed to be pretty happy throwing herself at men.
Right. When she's on the boat, in the early part of the story, she seems happy, but not so happy.
So she's like a psychopath.
All women are
That is-
I like nailing dead rabbits to the wall. It makes me happy.
That is to say, back and forth the emotions go. Is Dexter psychotic? He goes after her. Or is this the example of guys always want the girl they cannot have?
Well, that's the case.
Or is that just
Very stereotypical.
is that just a human trait? Humans always want what they can't have. Maybe maybe we should have this conversation in 30 years. And then we'll just ask, well, did it work out?